So, as we get back into our 17th session of the Inexorables, welcome all, intrepid adventurers. We return back after the party had gotten back to Revedan after escorting the moon giant Gendoras back to the City of Stars. Upon arriving, having a discussion with a couple people, eventually being sent to Evithar Aparium and his very paranoid primary office, you could say. He gave you the details of your next mission, where you will be going to track down Stolius Entrati and Pax Olamus, your Umbral allies, who seemingly have both gone AWOL in the newly formed refugee camps of the Vox Sevorum, in between Revedan and Team, in the southwestern section of the Caladrian Empire. So, as you guys were given this information, you were told that you could go to one of the other professors later in the day to be teleported there. A man by the name of Karg Palent, which, Linen, you do know. You've probably taken one or two classes under him. And with that information, you all went out shopping. All except for Leopold, who went home to clean up and take a shower and maybe see Yvonne. Yvonne was not there, so he had to pour his own bath for the first time in a very long time. It was a shameful event. However, he did end up getting cleaned, but he was a little too slow. As he was preparing to leave, the rest of the party shows up at his doorstep. We did have some issues with the recording last session, so just for continuity's sake, half that session is probably gone. So, as we get into this session, we begin again with a knock at the door.
Leopold, who was, I believe, just like right in front of the door getting ready to leave, begins to pull the big door open.
And then as soon as you do, I bust the other door open with a platter in my hand.
Do you have a thing against knocking?
I believe there was a knock from the old DM. Yes, throwing that door open was quite unnecessary, but why exactly are the four of you here? I'm not exactly against it, mind you, just curious.
I'm sorry, I thought this was home base.
Well, it's my home base, and I don't necessarily have any qualms with you coming over. I just prefer a bit of forewarning. Is there something that matters? Is it urgent?
Well, I figured we could sit down and discuss our plans for our mission before we set foot on new territory for the group. So, and we can't come here without saying hello to Yvonne. Hi, Yvonne.
Yvonne peeks out from the kitchen as she is still putting food away and says, "Hello, Rikus. Is that for me?" As she's looking at the platter.
I was like, "Oh, yes. So, yeah, we felt bad about kind of dropping by unexpectedly, so this is for you. We got it at the Flower Garden. A variety of pastries. Here you go."
She's going to slowly stride up, and you see she's kind of like covered in flour and stuff, as she's apparently begun prepping some stuff for tomorrow at this point. And she's going to take it and take a big whiff of the pastries and other baked goods and say, "A good establishment." And she's just going to walk back into the kitchen.
Nice.
Good job, Rikus. Which, unfortunately, me doing this position kind of covers up my mic. Good job, Rikus.
I just give a thumbs up. I was like,
Yes, I just.
I'm gonna kind of look you up and down and be like, "Well, you weren't intending to go anywhere, were you?"
Well, I knew you lot would be out shopping, so I was going to go and meet you. But you're here. Linen, do you think you didn't pick up anything for our social project, did you?
Robert just threw back the pills? No.
Those may work. You can test them.
What were we talking about? Sorry, I found. I went to the what's it called? I went to the medicine shop earlier, and I kind of lost
Apothecary?
Apothecary, thank you. I went there earlier. I kind of lost train of thought. What were we talking about?
I want to try and enlarge some of us in the same manner that the giants did that we just fought.
Oh yeah, okay.
It might be most useful on Sakir.
I mean, I might not have much on me, but I could at least point you in the correct direction for at least more natural remedies rather than magical.
That'll be worth a shot. Quite literally, I've been brainstorming the best methods for delivery. I couldn't exactly force feed them a pill, so I'm thinking of some sort of syringe method. Perhaps fired from crossbow. And your camera just became very blurry, Zach. Somebody stole all of your pixels.
I mean, unfortunately, last time I went to go buy syringes, somebody had just bought them all. Ruckus, you have any?
I have no idea what you're talking about. But yes, I do have some. How many do you need?
Just a few for testing. I'll need to probably tinker with them to get an optimal automated delivery method.
I'm going to reach into my bag, open up a small little pouch inside the like little bag inside my satchel or whatever, and pull out some needles. I'm going to look at them real close, take one, toss it back into the backpack. I was like, don't want that one. These ones should be clean.
I've never looked for needles in a needle stack before. Just whisks them into his bag folding. Have to do more experiment those when I do not have guests over. But Sakir, Wayne, how have the two of you been doing?
Good. I need, or I can wait on 600 gold. Is that something that is pocket change for you?
I mean, I could supply 600 gold, but I'm curious as to why?
I took a loan from Linen.
Let's new cloak.
Yes, you see, we have new outfits.
600. Wait, hold on. He will sort of lean close and look into and inspect the fabric of your cloak.
Maybe armor.
Oh no, I bought the cloak with my own money, and then Secure needed more.
Well, yeah, both of you did buy cloaks, correct?
Oh,
if
I
I'm
bought armor.
remembering last session. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sakir and I bought armor.
Serpent scale.
Yeah, the serpent scale that I have. Well, in that case, he will inspect the armor, not the cloak.
We took inspiration.
They do say imitation is the highest form of flattery. And it is quite fine workmanship, I do say.
Mm-hmm. That's why I have not been.
Yeah, mine looks like gray and green, and yours looks dumb.
I'm trying to remember the colors that we set out in the last session. Isn't mine also gray and green?
No, yours is either blue or red. I thought
It definitely wouldn't have been red.
It wouldn't
It
be
would-
like a red.
it would have been
yours-
blue. You said blue.
I believe you did say blue. I cannot remember though.
I don't remember either, and the recording may not remember.
The recording probably does not remember either. So,
All I
So,
know is that mine looks
we'll just say it's
different
blue.
color.
Oh,
While imitations may be the highest form of flattery, insults have a way of undoing that. Regardless, how are you liking the new armor? I'm curious.
Fits well. Seems like it'll
Yeah.
be very mobile in combat as well. The
Yes,
old
but
one
I-
was well, too much
Yeah.
for me.
I suppose, how exactly does that hold up with your transformations? Or have you even tried to transform while inside of it?
Well, due to the fact I don't really change size when I transform, it wouldn't need to do any
Well-
form melding, but it is also a magical item. Magical items do fit.
Yes, but I do know that involves quite some blood tentacles. I was unsure how exactly the whole process worked. Like, did they grow from your upper arm? Did they grow from more of your
Oh, all
wrist?
over. You see here, and he like exposes a bit of the armor. There's enough in there that I can wiggle a knife in between those chinks. You should be able to cover. I think I'll be all right.
It must be. It must take a while to clean out, though.
I can't say I've ever had to clean too many bloodstains out of these armor, so I cannot say. Most of the bloodstains get on the outside, not the inside.
Well, that's why mine's red. His is not red, by the way.
Is it green?
How did it get bloody?
What color is it, Zach? My Sakira is completely colorblind.
I was about to ask.
Your armor?
No.
Yeah. What
Your
color
armor?
would it be?
So the general armor that you had bought for Serpenstein would be like anywhere from like a dark green with gray linings. Any kind of green and gray mixture would be that. There's some that have different paint designs and stuff.
It's a vibrant green. So that's why I got the red one. It'll blend right in. I don't need to worry about it as much.
Rikus, is your brother colorblind?
Do we know what colorblindness
Unfortunately, only one of us was gifted with the ability to be intelligent. And
I am highly offended
well,
by that.
between the two of us, his eyes lack the intelligence to see color. And now I will say, as an addendum,
Red.
when you live in the Shadowfell for as long as we have, there isn't really color in the Shadowfell either. So it did take my eyes some time to adjust as well. His, however, seems to be still taking some time.
Is it,
Sorry, the
what, is it
Shadowfell
like-
didn't have color?
Is it all just like
Shadowfell's
grayscale?
very vibrant. Everything is just so bright here. You can barely tell the difference between any colors. If anything, it'd be easier to tell the color of red in the Shadowfell than it is here. Right?
Tell me
I
then.
just look at him and I just pat him on the shoulder and go, I just nod.
This is red.
Tell me then.
Seeing like you guys are like
is,
walking inside while talking, and he's just like
Is
standing
the
there.
tomato red or green? The majority of it.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Is the tomato red or green? Like the majority of the tomato?
Of a tomato?
Yes. Is it red or green?
They're like a brownish color. That's why people
Trick
always
question,
them up
they're-
in potatoes.
Both.
Well, I'm not
They're
counting
similar.
the leaves. I'm talking about the majority of it, the skin of the vegetable.
Oh yeah, the leaves are red, but the rest of it is all brown. And that's why
He's
like
definitely
people are
colorblind.
constantly mixing. That's what I'm saying. That's why the saying is tomato tomato or potato potato. They're mixing the two up.
What color's your blood, Sakir?
Red. Blood is always red.
Okay. Well, at least you got that one right.
Is it like different shades of red you can't see? Or
Hmm.
As this all is happening, Yvonne walks out of the kitchen with a vibrant purple flower, and she's going to hold it out in front of Sakir and say, "What color is this?"
Flower.
Yes,
Yellow.
the flower. Smell it. It smells quite good, doesn't it?
Smells green.
It
Green.
smells green.
It's green, right?
Are we sure he's colorblind and not just dumb?
Remember when I said that when we were when our parents birthed gifted us with life, one of us walked away with intelligence.
Listen, I'm not a botanist. I don't. It's not like I know much about.
I don't believe you need to be a botanist to understand colors.
I'm trying to make educated guesses at this point because honestly, there's not a big difference in that hue than.
Hey, so secure,
somewhere at the
secure.
wall.
Listen, secure. So you know how during the autumn during the what's the equivalent of the autumn season?
Is fall.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know what it was called in your world. In the fall season,
Yes.
the leaves turn.
When the leaves turn from
Darker
a dark
shades.
shade of beige to gray. Yes.
Yes. The darker gray.
Some are lighter gray.
When that happens, yes. And when that happens, the leaves fall and makes the field look like a sea of beige and grays. There is approximately 27 different colors of leaf in that field,
Different
and
shades.
you can't see any of them.
I'm starting to believe I can't, and it's scaring me a little bit.
Yvonne just laughs to herself and walks back into the kitchen.
I don't understand. Am I missing out on something?
So leaving Secure with a feeling of existential dread as he's realizing everything he's ever seen in the Prime material probably was not what everybody else has been seeing. What would you guys like to do next? Because I don't know how much longer I want to spend on this scene. It is very funny, but we just cooked like 10 minutes. So
New side quest.
Is there anything
Anyways,
else
we
you
should
guys
probably
would like to
discuss what our game plan is.
New side quest. I'm making Secure colorblind glasses. I'm gonna give him all of the color he needs.
Oh my god.
It's gonna be like that one Jake Paul video.
Why?
Wasn't that Logan Paul?
It might have been Logan Paul.
The
You have
funniest
to make
part
it
about all of
goggles
this
because
is the
glasses
fact
are great.
that Jade, in real life, is red-green colorblind.
A little bit.
And I have convinced him that a color is not actually what he sees.
You keep saying that, but you
Multiple
don't even remember the time you
times.
did it.
No, I remember the time. I'm just never gonna tell you. What do you mean?
No, you said you didn't remember.
I do remember one of them.
So what color is your shirt right now?
Me? Jade?
Yes.
Yeah, it's red. Reddish pink.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yeah. I was gonna
we
say
can't
more of
really
like
tell
a
the
reddish
difference, so-
orange, but camera's probably mucking around with it.
Yeah, this is a warmer room, so that messes with things, but...
Yeah.
No, I
Anyway.
can tell red and green just fine.
Anyways,
Much more beige.
D&D. Well,
Should probably get onto the mission.
yes.
Let's discuss it.
I'm trying to remember where exactly the mission has us going, because I remember the next one is Suno.
It would be going to team.
Team, yes. I don't believe I've ever been to Team. Has anyone here ever been to Team?
I've not.
Hold on, I gotta look at the map.
I was gonna say,
Uh,
I don't
Team
believe
is...
anyone has really had reason enough to go that far south.
Team is along the coast.
It is along the coast, and most of you guys, most of the travels have been in and around the spine. And Team's pretty... It's not super far, but it's far enough away from the spine and doesn't have an outlet from the spine nearby.
I had been to Eridon and Sargoth, not Team.
Oh, yeah, Sargoth's first mission together was.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that precludes us knowing anything about Team from personal experiments. DM, may I roll history to try and get the most current events in Team?
Sure, go ahead and roll me a history check.
Most current events. The Vox.
The Vox Sevorum. That will certainly be one of the biggest ones.
19.
19. So a big thing you would know, as a son of a noble house yourself, you know that the liege lords and most well-known lords of Team are the Mara Crofts. M-A-R-A Crofts. They are a dwarven family. Their words are, "The sea is our shepherd," and their standard is a black boat with an orange flag at its mast on a blue field. And they're very often known as stubborn, just as most dwarves are. However, they're probably the only true seafaring dwarves that you know of, at least in the Galadrian Empire. The dwarves of the Dwendalian Empire didn't really dip their toes into seafaring until 20 to 30 years ago, and that's when they really discovered Dairn. Of course, they had their general shipping vessels, but they never really had warships, whereas Team is the Galadrian Naval Force's central base. The dockyards that create nearly every boat of the Galadrian Empire is based in Team. Current events, in terms of royal stuff, there's not been any huge events around the noble family or any of the other smaller noble families that you know of. But there is the obvious of them agreeing to harbor, or at least let the Vox Sevorum effectively make a camp south of their city. The Vox Sevorum is spread out in a series of camps in between Rivacheg and Team, which that alone is about a 2 to 3 day walk for most people. You guys with horses and or just your dedication to moving are able to clear ground very quickly. Generally do that not just for mechanics' sake of, hey, we're not on the road as long, because, we like to roleplay road sessions and stuff like that. But in the same right, if an average group of people left Rivacheg, it's going to take them multiple days to get up to Team. So there's a whole bunch of different camps, but there is one mega camp that is effectively known as the Camp of the Vox. Surely it'll have its own name here soon, but it's been there for less than 3 months.
And I would assume any, more on-the-ground news, you might say, of what the, any sort of tensions in the region is probably best figured out by a personal examination, not by a history roll.
Tensions of the region. Many of the lords of the Galadrian Empire did not approve of the liege lords of Team and Rivacheg taking on the refugees. Whether it be these two lording families had a chip on their shoulder, wanted to prove something, whatever it ended up being, the representatives of the consortio that ended up bargaining for this refugee camp only visited Team and Rivacheg, seemingly having some prior information to believe this is probably going to be a good place to go. An important thing to note is Team, the liege lords are dwarven, and in Rivacheg, the Penethons are Azimir. Very, very thin blood Azimir, but they are Azimir. So any number of speculation is had. A lot of them are speculating towards, okay, well, dwarves and Azimar were kind of people subjugating the refugees. They're trying to bring a better name to their race, or for whatever reason. That certainly is a popular one, at least in the Galadrian Empire, people are saying that. But it wasn't vetoed by the king of the Galadrian Empire, or heavily opposed by any of the other lords of the realm, but is kind of looked down upon as it's brought an extensive threat from the Khtanid Empire in the near future.
And one last point, since I was when I was in better standing with my family, would I have had any interactions with Maracroths, or is that reaching a bit too far?
From Zadash, you certainly would have. Your family would have, absolutely. But your family isn't huge into shipping. And that would be the biggest draw to team. So obviously they would have to interact with team every once in a while. Just as, hey, we're, requesting a new ship to be made. We're spending 40,000 gold pieces on this new grand galleon for our family to sail down the Spine on.
So it's more so they definitely recognize the name, but there's no really outstanding love or hate.
Yeah, it's a very, very neutral thing. A lot of nobles, especially with your family being one of the lower nobles of Zadash, you don't associate with many of the nobles from other cities. Only when you have to, and or when there's possible advancement for both sides.
Well, I'll go ahead and relay all of this to the party and state that if we do need any discussions with the Maracross, I might be able to at least get some foot in the door for what it's worth as a nobleman. And we still don't have any sort of official identification as members of the Inexorables, which still wish I could speak about that.
Rikus is gonna look really confused for a second. It's like, what do you mean you guys don't have identification? And he's gonna turn to the rest of the party.
I am talking like an official badge of office, as saying we are the Inexorables.
No, that's... I get what you're saying, Leopold, but you didn't get your badge?
I thought we had an entire... Hold on, say that again.
I look over at Rikus and say, "Where's your badge?"
I pull it out of my pocket.
What does it
and
look
show
like?
my little badge. I don't know, DM.
I thought we had an entire conversation down in... let me remember the city name.
Sargoth.
Yeah, down in Sargoth about how we didn't have any sort of identification for how...
Yeah, that's... I put in a request with Lycus to change that, to...
Well, thank you for that. I simply never heard of it. Yeah, when did you get them?
Wait, Lennon, you don't have one either?
No.
I just have
had
my
one, right?
I just have my
You didn't
rope
do it
of the
for
Azure
anyone else.
Library.
Hold on, I'm gonna... Okay, I rolled above a 10. I'm gonna pause for a second, like mid-sentence. Like, what do you... Like, none of you have a... And I'm gonna look down in my bag. Like, look down at my bag. And hold up my finger really slowly, and then kind of rummage through it, pull out like this half-bent letterhead, open it up, look inside, and go, "Oh."
Did you never give them out?
Is that the dossier from the Nesthroon case?
And he says that he was the one
No.
blessed with the brains.
And I'm just gonna hand out the badges.
As these badges are handed out, these small laminated, like 2x3 cards are given out that have your full name, a very, very short identification number, and on top of that, the symbol of the Inexorables is a black background with 7 white towers with a star at the top of each, representing the 7 towers of the central district of the city of Revedan.
"17 sessions in, boy."
It came up in like what, section 3 or 4?
Probably there or earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
In my defense, we haven't needed them
True.
We have needed them
since Sargoth.
since Sargoth.
Yeah, we haven't really needed them since Sargoth. I mean, the hunters knew who we were. Gendo didn't particularly doubt our claims as to who we were. I'm glad it came up now, though. And this does kind of segue into a point I was hoping to bring up with Lycus, were he here. How much are we going to play at regional politics? Because with the warning that we got from what was the barbarian's name? No, the barbarian's name. Carrick, yes. With the warning that we got from Carrick that we passed on to Lycus, sort of dipping our toes into politics. And I was under the impression we were going to be remaining a neutral organization. If we're getting important information and passing it on to the Caladrian, yes, that's the empire we're in. If we're getting important information and passing it on to Caladrian authorities, we sort of jeopardize that neutrality claim, don't we?
To some extent, we need to pass along information so that way we can get places.
Well, yes, but the fact that an enemy country is mobilizing doesn't particularly seem as relevant to our organization. At least it's not immediately relevant.
Leopold, I've seen my fair share of war, and also been the footwork of many political motives in my last 12 years. And I will say it is a breath of fresh air not having to worry about that. I do trust Lycus when he says we are not a military force.
Yes, I'm not saying we're a military force, but I don't.
So I wouldn't worry that we will get tangled into politics.
I'm not going to suggest that somebody else is pressuring us to be tangled into politics. I'm worried that we may tangle ourselves into politics. What we did in the Iron Hills might not necessarily be wrong, but one could consider that somewhat adjacent to aspiring. And if we happen to find some information out on a case in, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a city in the Khatan Empire, in Durnhill or Jelkala, and we bring that information back to here to Revedan, and then the Caladrian Empire acts on it, and that gets traced back to us, which is quite a lot of ifs, I will grant you. It's not going to bode particularly well for our organization. This umbral threat doesn't care about national borders.
Yes, and if we were to pass along information to the Caladrian Empire, we do so as just mere travelers talking about the day-to-day rumor mills and things like that.
As long as we don't go directly searching for state secrets, we should be fine. After all we come across is information on the road that anyone talking to a merchant can run into.
I suppose you are right there, but it's something we should be wary of. Even if we happen to find something while pursuing a completely different lead, it's perhaps we should consider whether we should give it to Caladrian authorities or not.
Do you think we should make that judgment, or if we should let Lycus and just give him our full reports?
That is a discussion I was hoping to have with Lycus, but lo and behold, he wasn't here. And so I would feel remiss if I didn't at least bring it up now.
I'm going to turn to the rest of the party and say, well, I guess it's a group vote. Anyone has anything else to say about it? Wayne, you like politics, or at least most churches do.
Fuck politics.
Amen.
Unless they're paying the bills.
Hey, man. I'm just like thinking of my monthly stipend from the military. Like,
I will note to you guys that there has already been a bit of a discussion between Entrati and you guys, particularly in the concept of multiple different organizations wanting a piece of the Inexorables due to the effectively magical radar that he developed for sensing these umbral creatures. And how he discussed that whether he likes it or not, much of the Caladrian Empire and organizations out of the Caladrian Empire will take interest and likely end up making the Inexorables a political piece on the Caladrian board. And he's doing his best to maintain a neutral sphere. However, doesn't help when the sister city of the capital and its firstborn son of the Liege Lord is, the second in command of your organization. With Ernest. So the concept of neutrality and separating oneself from the Caladrian Empire is not much of an option.
People use my knowledge and research for whatever, all the time. So
exactly,
worry
they
about
could
it
be
too
making
much.
lethal weapons. Think about all the bioweapons they're creating to unnaturally enlarge things.
I mean, at least they're
From
not using
the
the
enemy.
placebo potions anymore. Shut that stuff down real quick. Did you know they put cocaine in some of them?
Not going to ask.
Well, with this discussion seemingly coming to a bit of a close, unless there's even more shenanigans.
I mean, I think that's the politics part of it getting to a close.
Is there what's our next subject?
What are we talking about? Oh yes. the
Well, we
stamp.
have next to nothing on the leads other than to a few contacts with the Fox. Any suggestions on where we go first?
Well, I believe it would make the most sense to visit the Vox themselves first, and afterwards then perhaps pursue any leads they give us, and if they go to team, we can talk with the the Malcroths.
We are. I mean, one of the refugee leaders is ready to meet with us.
Mm-hmm.
Finchlock, was it?
Sounds correct.
Finchlock and the one they call Aton? Were those the two that they were?
Yes, Finchlock and Arton Dragonkin.
I wonder if he likes dragons.
Assumedly.
Judging by the name.
That is a dragonborn.
Well, that.
A little redundant, isn't it?
So.
Well, I'm sure we'll see plenty of refugees, though, and I kind of look over at Wayne and said, whatever you do is your choice in that regard.
I mean, it's not like we're diplomatic envoys or anything.
No, I said that to Wayne. As in, like, we're dealing with a bunch of refugees and you're a preacher.
I think I can handle it.
Awesome.
We've got room for another 45,000 in the Inexorables, right?
It'd be a crazy final boss fight.
Army.
Just take 40,000 refugees, throw them at the vampire.
Turns into 40,000 vampire spawn.
Oh no, who could have seen this coming?
Oh no, it's the Eastern Front. They will prevail.
Oh no 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 no.
Oh jeez.
Anyway, so it sounds like first plan is to just meet up with the Vox and see where it gets us.
So far.
Honestly, we've
Name-
gone this far by winging it.
We have gotten this far by winging it. Anyone want to take bets on what happened to him?
Hmm. Mm.
Varys?
My bet is that some sort of other dimension space involved. It would make sense as to why they can't be contacted, but they're both extremely hard to kill. Putting them somewhere else would make the most sense.
I was gonna bet 2 gold that he got locked. He got locked into a game of arcane poker. Pax found him. Got so invested that Pax can't stop buying in because he sucks at arcane poker.
I'm gonna take that bet. How much?
Your mic got
It's
incredibly
so
quiet there.
Quiet.
Dang
It's so
it.
quiet.
Ah! I'm willing to take that bet. How much?
2 gold.
Sure. 2 gold. I'll take.
And what do you think happened then, Sakia?
I like your idea of them being in another plane. However, one is a wizard. Plane shift, something they can do.
Ah, you have me there. Perhaps time flows differently in that plane, and he's waiting on his spell slots to recuperate.
My guess is they've been charmed, incapacitated, and are unconscious at the moment.
But how would they be kept unconscious for so long?
You're trying to tell me a celestial was knocked unconscious?
Is that not something that can happen?
Varys?
At the very least, with other dimensions, it's simply a matter of pushing them through a portal with surprise and closing it after them.
I think worst case scenario is that they are not contacting on purpose.
I think another bet is yeah, I'm gonna put 2 more in for Lennon because I know he's poor, but I'm gonna put 2 more in for Lennon and I'm gonna double that for 4 gold. Ferris.
Yvonne's gonna say, I bet it was a group of killer clowns.
Yo, that'd be crazy.
Have you ever seen a killer
Come on.
clown?
I'm willing to take that bet.
She peeks her
You
head back
said
up from the
it
kitchen,
did
and
come
2
by the
gold
ladder.
just come rocketing at your face, Secure.
Alright.
My money's on Succubi.
Damn, that's a good answer.
That's a good one.
Take that bet as well.
Succubi to go
Good answer.
on the
Happens
dimension.
to
Good
press.
answer, good answer.
Succubi is a good answer, though.
Me over here, just like Steve Harvey, doesn't know what the answer is yet.
The survey says.
Survey says. All right. So, as you guys are discussing all of this, unless you guys have something else very pressing to discuss, Leopold, you are wanting to go out and purchase 1 or 2 things, and all of you guys at this point, peeking outside, notice the sun is now down. So you guys should probably get heading to the academy again here pretty soon.
The one thing I would like to do is purchase a Rocky Talkie for Yvonne.
Alright, so if you go out and spend... What is my general number for Rocky Talkies?
How much did we spend that one session in Suno?
I think they were 50 a piece, is what they were, because I think it was 300 for the 6 that you bought.
Sounds about right.
So,
Good
100
year.
gold pieces for a pair.
100 gold pieces removed, and now Yvonne has a Rocky Talkie with me. We can stay up all night calling each other, and I don't know. I was trying to think of some other place to take that joke, but the only ones that would work are not canon.
Are not canon, will never be canon, negatory.
the hidden sixth member of the Inexorables, Yvonne.
I mean, it's probably what it's gonna end up being at a certain
Probably.
point. Let's be honest. Probably gonna be one of the more recurring NPCs.
Next campaign, Yvonne's adventure to rescue the Inexorables.
I just have Claire come in, play Yvonne, just run a whole group in person. None of you guys know anything about it. I make sure Claire doesn't talk to Thomas.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Alrighty. Anyway, so you run out, you grab a pair of sending stones, come back, give Yvonne a sending stone, say your goodbyes, and then part out for the Academy of Dusk again. Once you guys get there, Linen will lead you guys up into the tower of Karg Helen, which, if memory serves, one second. The High Professor of Conjuration. So as you guys roll up and into his study, you find a straight up dark, earthy, brown-skinned man, as you see the Earth Genasi sitting behind the table, seemingly poring through a book that is just a whole bunch of teleportation sigils. What would you guys like to do as you step in?
Evening, Professor.
He's going
Evening.
to look up and say, "Ah, Linen, it is good to see you."
And you too. We were here because Professor Avatar said that you were setting up a teleportation ritual to send us to near Teen.
Yes. The newly found Inexorables seemingly taking over the minds and work time of nearly every professor here, it seems.
Apologies.
It is not your
I don't-
fault. I blame Eparium and Erenin, but...
In our defense, I don't believe we've had any contact with any necromantic professors. Or enchantment professors. Actually, hold on. What school is Lycus?
Lycus is transmutation.
Or enchantment? Or illusion?
Recognize you are not the only Inexorable group as well.
I suppose you have got me there.
And
Then
just
do we...
because the others are not teleporting you around doesn't mean they aren't working in new spells or working with Erenin to try and find new ways of encountering and or immobilizing these umbral threats. Regardless, it is getting late. If you would step over here, he's going to stand up and push back, closing his book of teleportation sigils, and he's going to open up a door, and there's this very small room. It's only about 15 feet wide in its totality, with a very, very well-marked teleportation sigil set on the ground. And he is going to point to the middle of the circle and say, if everyone could stand inside the sigil.
Before we do go, are you going to be responsible for teleporting us back, or are we going to be making our own way back?
That will be in between you and Eparium or Erenin or whoever you have contact with. If they wish, you can return to wherever you end up. I do not know where Entrati placed the marker for me to ping upon. If you were able to return to that exact location, I, in theory, could bring you back with no danger involved. However, either by foot, horse, boat, or direct teleportation would likely be an easier way to do things.
Duly noted. No other questions for me.
Aren't we supposed to go to Suno after we're done in team?
Correct.
Suno. For the Festival of the Rise, I assume.
I
Yes.
think so. Professor Erenin told us to meet him there.
Well, it is certainly possible, however, that is still at least a few days away. It depends on how long you take. in the refugee camps of Team. Regardless, these are not questions I have answers to, sadly. And I am looking forward to getting a full night's rest, unlike the last 3 months.
In the last.
Well, I would hate to keep you from that rest. No other questions from us? In that case, you may teleport us.
I step in the circle.
Yeah,
So
what happened in the past 3 months aside from the refugee stuff?
Hey, maybe it's personal stuff. You don't know.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Rikus.
What, you just now noticed that he was leaving for the bathroom?
No, what he posted in session memes.
Man.
Leopold's non-canon. Regardless. So, as you guys all step in after a short 1-minute ritual, you guys disappear in a flash. And up here, upon the crest of a hill, it's kind of pushed back. There's a rocky overhang where you're sitting, and you look around and you note that there is a sigil on the ground around you. It is very faint, and there is a satchel at its very center that linen, you go and you peek inside, and it's a whole bunch of material components that's attempting to keep this sigil active. Generally, you have to, for teleportation circles, cast them every day for a year to get a permanent circle. This is by no means permanent. This is very, very short term, but still does seem to be active, even though it's close to 4 or 5 days past when Stolius, not Lycus, I almost said Lycus, when Stolius put the marker here. As you guys peer out over the landscape that you can see, you see a whole lot of tents. A lot of tents. You know when in the third movie, Return of the King, of the Lord of the Rings, how they crest over the hill and they see the whole of the Rohirrim, and there's like 6,000 people there. Imagine that like times 10. This camp sprawls out for miles, and it is just different tents. There is not a single permanent structure that you see from here. You're certain that there are some down there, but they blend in to the tan and brown tents so thoroughly that from this far away, you just can't see a single permanent structure among this camp. As you look to your north, you see in the very, very, very far distance, probably a third to half a day's journey out, you see the walls of Team.
I suppose that would make sense if we be teleported here, but it would have been a lot more convenient if we could have gotten a good night's rest in Team. I was just about to ask if we were going to wait for Thomas, but it looks like he's back.
Hello, back.
Hi. Seems I just missed the teleportation.
Yep.
Teleportation
We are in the
happened.
refugee camp outside of
You
Team.
guys are outside of the refugee camp.
Yeah, I
way
picked up
out-
that part.
Way out of Team.
Picked up that part.
So, do you guys wish to make your way down into the camps, or try and take a rest here? This is a pretty good campsite. You could use this here. Depends on what you guys want.
So which side of Team are we on? We're on the west side?
You guys are south and probably a little west of Team.
Okay.
I don't think I'm needing a rest, so I'm good if we want to just go.
You guys are probably an hour from getting into the camp, and then you gotta find the person you want to talk to.
Yes, and it's also dark out, correct?
It is dark. You're probably looking at 8 to 8:30 at this point.
I don't particularly fancy traversing that camp in the dark. And then still needing to find a place to sleep. I doubt they have many open beds. I'll probably have to walk either all the way out here, all the way to Team, and then find some rest.
us to sleep out here? I'm not against it. I thought we might travel in since you're not used to sleeping on cold, hard ground.
Well, I mean, I'm not one to sleep on cold hard ground. I've quite the pack, I assure you. It's quite a nice sleeping mat with some blankets. Oh, it's no goose feather bed at home, but it's still quite good.
Oh,
As
600
he's
gold?
saying this, I just like post up next to like a tree and just kind of sit down and fall asleep. I'm like, who needs a blanket?
Well, I suppose Rikus isn't taking first watch then. How about you take a rest as well, Secure, and Wayne and I can take first watch. And then we can swap out with you guys after you've had your 4 hours of rest.
Sounds good. Thank you. I will say, and I look over at Lennon, I will get the 600 gold from you as soon as I can convince him that he has enough money as it is.
I mean,
Go set up your cot. And I lay down and I just drape a jacket over myself and fall asleep.
does he understand the concept of debt?
I mean, I believe so. I'm not certain. Try not to lose any sleep over it. It's not worth it.
I'm gonna stay up a bit. I'm gonna try and look into something of my own.
Okay.
I look up as you say that. No. Down. You're not doing this again.
Doing what?
Remember, Lennon, you are the one who does need an actual
Yeah.
long rest out of this whole party.
Yeah, but what time is the party planning to get up?
Probably early.
Pretty dang early, since
Yeah.
you guys are probably going to
I
take
mean,
at least a couple hours
yeah.
to
About
find
what
who you're
time?
looking for.
Let's assume we start hucking it out at Odark early of 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so I got at least an hour and a bit before I actually needed to sleep.
What, are you gonna roll an intelligence check to see if you, like -5 to see if you actually fall asleep, or if you're?
Are
Like,
you gonna try and
Then-
are you gonna try and stick Secure while he's asleep to see if he enlarges?
No.
No.
All right, let's move past this bit. I don't want to get stuck on this.
I'm sure Secure doesn't want to get stuck either.
So, as the Shade Hollow brothers are taking their rest, doing a little bit more research, Lennon's kind of staying up but slowly drowsing off into sleep. Leopold and Wayne, you guys have decided to take the first watch. Go ahead and roll me a perception check.
Mm.
Ah,
22.
20.
23.
3.
Dang.
Ooh, baby. So,
I'm really glad for that advantage because I have 19 and a 2.
as the pair of you are taking a rest, looking out at the... Oh my gosh, I'm very gassy. Looking out at just the vibrant landscape. Because it is actually a very beautiful land down here by Team. Even where you currently are, you can like see the coastline in the far, far distance, since you're just so much higher above sea level where you are. And it really is beautiful. You know that you have a pretty lush and green forest up to your northwest. And you're looking out, and your gaze naturally goes to the lights in the little refugee camp. And you note that there are very few at this time. The Vox seems to have a pretty dang well set curfew or bedtime or something of the sort. However, one section in particular is very well lit up. More permanent looking structures that you can't quite tell what they're used for, but there's a series of a whole bunch of them along the western line that do have plenty of light around them. But it's too far away to really tell what they are. But that is by far and away the most well-lit section. And your gaze, after your short trip with Gendo, naturally then rises up to the stars, where, as we are currently, both Elaras and Elenus are not very active. They're both pretty small in the sky. Both almost like a bright gray, dark white, and a deep maroon, as they sit up in the sky with the stars around them. Almost brings some more curiosity of maybe having another talk with Gendo to see how he feels about the moons maybe in the future. Regardless, what would you guys like to discuss?
Give me a little blanket. Oh. What do you think of those buildings, preacher?
Pull my eyes from the sky and I kind of look back down towards the more permanent looking buildings. Well, can't say I know that much about setting up refugee camps, but I imagine that's likely an inn or something that they've taken over as potential headquarters or something. For some reason, it's more important to light than the rest of the camp.
I wouldn't be so certain. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, DM, you said it was like an entire line of buildings?
Yes, there's quite a few.
Yes, I doubt there'd be an entire line of pre-existing inns. It's probably something the refugees built themselves.
This could be. I'd reckon, though, that that's where we should start our search tomorrow.
Perhaps it's the headquarters of the leaders of the Vox. It would make sense that they got the permanent structures first. Maybe it's important buildings like courthouses and jails. I imagine that a team probably wouldn't have the capacity on their own.
How big was Team before the refugees got here?
Team was a fairly large city. And just to clarify, the refugees are not in the city limits of Team. They have been given the stretch of land, air quotes given, they have been given certain portions of the sections of land in between Team and Rivetsheg. So the refugees do not exist in the city. They just exist nearby. So Team itself is probably the largest of the coastal cities, probably sitting close 400,000 to 500,000 population, with the largest dockyards that span close to 30 to 40 miles of just dockyards and shipyards and ports along its coast that curves up north. It doesn't curve south with all of those, but along its coast going north is those dockyards.
That is a very large
Mm-hmm.
range for docks.
Yes, and it's not like, okay, there's a dock every 2 feet. There's smaller villages that are also a part of this dockyard.
So it's the Team Metro then.
Yes, there are plenty of smaller villages, but it's all considered the Team dockyards, considering it's the central section of the area.
Yeah. But they'd have to go into Team probably for supplies and other things.
Undoubtedly.
Unless maybe those are, I don't know, some merchants that moved in to help support the camps.
I don't see why merchants would need to build permanent buildings. I'm sure that their caravans could work quite fine, and if they need to go back and forth, the wagons would move. It's not like this is exactly prime real estate.
That is fair.
Hmm.
Well, I guess we'll find out in the morning.
Perhaps we can get Rikus and Sakia's thoughts on changing shifts with us.
I agree. Speaking of which, it's about that time, I reckon. I go over and I kick Sakir's boot.
I'll go and just nudge Rikus awake.
Hey, it's your turn.
How long is it?
Shift's up. 4 hours. Maybe a little less, give or take.
Close enough.
For about like 5 minutes. Alright.
That's what happens when you get tired. Anyways, one thing we did notice, and you'll point it out, I don't know why the lights are on that ring of buildings around the camp. It'd make a good point of investigation tomorrow. Perhaps you guys can think of what it might be.
Right. Tomorrow. Yes.
I'm gonna turn to Sakir and say, I guess the what word was I just thinking of? I'm so sorry. Out of character. Not diplomat. What are you?
Envoy?
No, Leopold.
Noble?
Oh yes. I guess the aristocrat needs his beauty sleep. As
Yes.
as I'm watching him set up his fancy bed.
And you
with
put far
his
too
comfy-
little stock in beauty sleep. We're both elves, we're going to be living until in the hundreds, if God's willing. Don't you want to look your best if you're going to be around here for centuries?
Hey.
Regardless.
I'm just gonna look at him and it's just say, I don't know about you, but I don't need sleep to be beautiful.
Well, they
Yes,
say
that's
beauty's in
something
the
would
eye
work.
of the beholder.
So
Though
as-
perhaps it should be eyes of the beholder.
so as
Regardless, good night.
Amadeus brothers take over the shift. You guys notice similar things. The moons makes you think of Gendo a little bit. Looking out, you kind of have the same conversation of, courthouse, jails, home of the box. What exactly is it? Before you even know it, however, your guys' 4 hours is also up. The sun has not yet risen. Dawn is a little bit around the corner, but you can probably get down and into the camp before dawn has fully risen.
We're gonna be starting our hike around 6, yeah. Let's see, our 4 hours depending around 8. So we still got like an hour or so.
Yeah.
Pack up things. I'm gonna cook eggs.
Where'd you get the eggs?
Getting a fire set up and just setting like a metal sheet on top of it, just cracking some eggs, cooking some stuff up.
I have cookware.
I know, it's just funnier to just be a metal sheet.
Yeah, that is funny.
Either way.
Mac,
It's a baking
on
sheet.
that rest, can I take is it cartographer supplies for maps?
Yes.
Could I have a mastery on cartographer's tools, and I wake up and I start sketching the city as I see it from above on the hill?
I don't know if you need to ask permission for that. You can just change your.
Yeah,
I think he was more so informing Zach.
like I'm just saying, like while we're on watch, is that something I can do in the dark, just like sketching, like so we know all these places that are lit up, kind of have a basic layout of what the city is like, even if we don't know, like I mean, the individual names of the shops, just like
A general vibe of it, and you can't really see it very well, so it's very, very, very rudimentary. You
I
effectively
see in
just
black and
have,
white anyway.
You just have a section of the camps that you're just like lit up area. Figure out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So as you guys wake up, cook some eggs, get ready.
As
Rikus?
to as what am I looking for? I'm trying to remember what instrument I have on my person. Where is it?
You play an instrument?
Yes, the pan flute.
Nice.
I'll as breakfast is ready and our resident bookworm is still not awake yet. I'm just gonna be playing very lightly the pan flute to gently wake him up.
I'm gonna glance. Is this something that you just know how to do, or is this your trance?
It's something that I trance into every now and then, just because I like to play it.
I don't
It's
know if
something I
I've heard
picked
you
up
play
in
before,
service.
but I do squint over at you and said, "That's what you chose." To each their own. To each their own.
I'm gonna stop for a moment. So, you get bored on deployment.
I'm not. I didn't say I was judging. I was just questioning your choices. Play on. Still kidding.
So, getting the party up, playing a pan flute, cooking some breakfast. You all get a hearty meal and are probably able to set out and make your way down towards the refugee camp by leaving your guys' little makeshift camp in between 5:30 and 6 o'clock. As you guys take the hike down the hill into the camp and get closer and closer to this western section, I'm going to change this real quick. Oh, Jade, I like that. Inexorable symbol. I mean, not exactly what I was thinking, but I like it.
Take it.
It reminds me a lot of the Magic the Gathering logo.
Oh shoot! It totally does. It's totally. Ah! Yeah. Okay.
Inexorables, the collecting.
Did you just sketch that?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. So,
Yeah. It totally looks exactly like that.
as you guys are making your way down in and approach this western section of this refugee camp, looking out and getting closer, whoever placed bets on jail or cages is quickly given whatever copper was sent one way or another. As when you guys get closer, you recognize that mostly enclosed, but almost like opened up as morning is coming about. Each of these boxes, while separated in some regard on the inside, has probably 40 to 50 different people inside of them. Vast majority being dwarven. However, there are some Azamar. And as you're getting closer, you see that there's a series of patrols going about this area. Wearing this set of like almost a bright gray set of chainmail armor with a shield and pike. There's a group of 4 different guards who are passing by, who all immediately note you as they're passing and begin walking out to you. As you wave, they do not seem quite as welcoming. As they step up and kind of flange out around you, the one in the middle, who seems to be wearing this badge with 3 stripes and a singular little mark that you can't quite tell what it shows, at its center, looks out to you and says, what is your business approaching the Western Interstellar?
I will take out our fancy inexorable cards represented by this playing card. We are from the Inexorables. I believe you met earlier with some representatives of ours. We're here to conclude business with your leaders.
This is a big camp. I have not heard of anything of that sort. But
I
I'm sure
understand.
we can get you pointed in the right direction if
Yes.
you will follow me.
Yes.
He will nod to the other three to continue their patrol, and he will begin leading you into the city.
Did not Lycus say specifically we do not represent the Inexorables?
He said we didn't represent them, but we are still from the Inexorables. I never
not-
claimed that we represented us. At
No,
least not in
we're
an
not.
official
No,
diplomatic
he
capacity.
We're not.
said we're not representing the Inexorables in the discussions that they are.
Mm-hmm. We aren't allowed to make any sort of diplomatic offers.
Yes.
Okay.
You are representatives of the Inexorables. You do not represent them in the diplomatic negotiations that was occurring between Stolius and Trati and the members of the Vox Sevorum that originally began this whole debacle.
Yes. Okay. No problem.
Yeah, so with that cleared up.
As a side note, while we're traveling, what's with the people in the cages? What's the story behind that?
The soldier, as he looks behind him to you, he says, "We did not have much of a choice in our evacuation of Dan. Many of those who were prisoners there had to maintain being prisoners here. Regardless, that is not something for me to explain to you. If the hires want to explain it, they can do so." And he leads you guys to a little checkpoint upon which you guys do have to check in your weapons. They will not be taken, but it is marked your name, who you are with, what weapons you carry in, and so anything that you have weapon-wise that is not obvious and active, or that is obvious and active, is marked down, and you're given
Will they check back to holding?
So they do not check the bags of holding.
They have no way of doing that.
One, they have no way of doing that. Two, they've been guards for less than a couple months. So as they're checking through your materials, they're a little surprised at how high tech that all is. And the same guard who originally approached you outside of the seemingly prison sector is going to say, "In the camp of the Vox, if a weapon is drawn, it is expected that whoever drew first will join the rest of the dwarves in the prisons. Violence is not abated for here."
Understood.
Duly noted.
My
Do you think the
quarterstaff.
handover is a Vampire Be Gone starter kit and a frag grenade?
You still have those?
They have no clue what these two things are. They're just looking at them like,
Oh, that reminds me. I
guess that's okay.
I hand my grenade.
I'm like,
hand my
yeah,
grenades back to Rikus.
Grenade.
I figured we just kind of ad-libbed. I got my grenades back since you guys didn't use them, but
They never said they gave them back. You never.
Oh,
said
man.
They've still got them.
yeah, we're all just like turning in grenades, daggers.
I keep my titular one. That one
Rifles.
technically isn't a weapon. Doesn't do damage.
My quarterstaff is my walking stick.
I'm like handing over dynamite, gunpowder.
Gandalf, just
I thought you said
like-
gotten over
yeah.
from his walking stick.
Yeah.
Lennon, like 20-something years old, very obviously very young and spry still.
I've got a fancy stick. What do you guys want from me?
So I thought we were keeping our thing.
Yeah, we're just
Yeah,
checking
you're
them in,
keeping
guys.
Yeah, I'm just by
okay.
like checking them in. I'm taking all these like I'm tucking.
From the tone of voice, I thought you were like turning them in.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
this is
no,
just
no.
a check-in,
Very confused.
so that if anything occurs that includes a weapon of that type, you're now a very, very easy suspect.
Lyndon is
Regardless,
taking this moment to pass his grenades back to Rikus.
after everything is
As is
checked
cool.
in, they send a runner, and you guys are left sitting in this little pavilion section. They give you some food and stuff. It's pretty sparse, but they do give you a little bit of food. It's some bread and a little bit of grits and stuff like that. After about 30 minutes, a man approaching wearing a very, very well-made uniform, brand new. Just like just about everything you're gonna see here is, because they've only just started making stuff for themselves. So everything's new and shiny and polished. Maybe not of the finest linens, but no, Jade, no. So as he approaches,
Finest linens.
this man, to describe what he looks like, he's got deep brown eyes. He has a long, awkwardly blonde hair that almost brings out the darkness in his eyes and face. A full beard set in front, and on his lapel, where his sigil of an officer's status, you do not recognize this, whatever caste of officers this is. This seems to be something new and developed by the Vox. But he has 8 lines going straight up with 3 different symbols on different points and a star at its top. And as he approaches, he's going to say, "Well, y'all are an interesting bunch."
We try. And who might you be? Leopold looks on hand.
He's going to say, "My name is Herdock Doherty." And he's going to hold his hand out, and he'll shake Leopold's hand, and he's going to say, "Well, you're members of the Inexorables, yeah?"
Correct. There should have been 2 of our
Other
fellows.
representatives up to this point.
Yes.
Yes. Sadly, one of our representatives is no longer here, as he has been sent on a mission. However, I will be taking to meet with Finch, the little bird. I'm certain some of these. I hope they've given you a little bit of the rundown. All of your weapons have been checked. If anything were to occur and we see any use of them, you have pretty unique weapons. So it's going to be pretty easy to tell if you participated in anything. Not that I necessarily expect anything to go wrong. But also, if you all go missing, just like your last couple buddies, then it'll give whoever comes next a lead. And with that, he abouts face very correctly, Rikus, you will note, as an about face, and kind of looks over his shoulder and beckons you guys to follow. As he's walking, you guys see squalor. This place is very poor currently. A lot of men, women, and children, a variety of different races, however, primarily beast races. So we're talking orcs, goblins, hobgoblins. The further from human and Azamar that you are in the Khatanate Empire, the lower you're considered. So the beast races, obviously, there's plenty of dragonborn, and not to say that there aren't plenty of dwarves and humans as well who sold themselves into indentured servitude during the time of Darn. But still, a lot of beast races. And so, as you guys are walking through this town, Herdock is going to say, "I'm assuming you guys have some questions. If so, now would be the time to ask."
Well, I was supposing we would ask Finch when we met him. But
I'm
if
mostly
you're
talking
offering-
about the camp. If you have any questions, places to go, places to get around, I'll be showing you where we intend on placing you as quarters for your time here. It's not much, but it's cloth over your head.
Yeah.
Finch has more details on your friends.
I don't suppose you know where Stolius and Pax would have stayed, would you?
I know the general area, and I know Finch has a more exact section. They stayed right by one of the commissaries here, closer to the center of this camp. Yeah, Finch will have some more details in that regard. he kind of looks around, and there's just a sense of innate sadness on his face as he's walking by these hundreds upon hundreds and even thousands of people that barely have clothes, are probably scavenging for food. The Vox, being a very, very new group, still has not gotten its legs underneath itself yet. And as he...
You'll, sorry.
Go ahead.
I know I read some of the reports. Y'all's got out of town pretty quick, but I didn't think it'd be this quick.
Well, when most of the group you're bringing out are slaves that don't really own anything, they don't really have much to bring with them. We have plenty of master craftsmen and workers going through to try and make clothes, food stations, wash stations. We're digging somewhere close to a dozen wells a day in each camp. It's taking time, though. When you try and force 300,000 people into an area not well designed or capable of it, this is what happens. But it's better than burning in fire or choking on ash, which was the alternative back in Dairn.
It's something I wasn't fully read in on, though. What exactly happened out there? I know Return of the Titans and all is big news, but...
Well, the Titans had an old grudge. At least that's what I'm told by some of the other Vox leaders. And when they went to go and settle that grudge, when they were finally back and able to return, one of them was in the super volcano in the southwestern section of Dairn, which more than has enough range to cover the entirety of it. Well, I don't know if they settled their debt like they wanted to, but they certainly settled the debt on Dairn. We knew it was coming, though, which is why we, as the beginnings of the Vox back in Dairn, only a few thousand at the time, had to wage a war against whatever forces were left of the Obsidian Guard, or the Arkstone Guard, or the Hells Riders, or any number of different organizations that we had been subjugated by for a time.
Quite the feat going up against them.
Well, when you're 3 months boat ride away from a non-naval based country, the idea of support and backfill isn't really much of an opportunity for either side. We certainly had less people, less training, but we had some good people at the front. I was personally trained under Nari Firebrand and the creator himself. Little camp off the coast, regardless. A lot of people died, but we got a lot of people out in the end, so it was worth it.
I just kind of nod as I'm listening to him.
He'll continue to lead, and he stays mostly silent unless you guys have any questions. Pretty well about business. Eventually, he leads you to a slightly larger tent than the rest of those around. Doesn't seem to have anything super special on the outside, except for the fact that there are 2 guards posted at the front. And these guards, rather than dressed in a simple set of chainmail, they have a battle-hardened set of plate armor on. Both of these guys sitting at the front door, they do not wear shields. They have these white cloaks with purple insignias going down the sides. And as they're standing there, they have a single blade at their hip. And as Herdok approaches, he nods to both of them, and they both open the door to the tent. Inside, there is a very, very large table. And there is no seating around this table. There's a series of maps and papers and a variety of different stuff that would probably take a month to go through. This is a very big table. As you guys step in, there is a singular, very young man who is crouched over what seems to be like this very, very thick book. And he's writing incessantly inside of it. And as Herdok enters, he says, Finch, you've got some guests. The apparent man named Finch very quickly closes his book, puts it inside his jacket, stands up, straightens his cloak. He does not look like he slept in days. As he stands, he says, give me a few moments, Herdok, if you'll entertain them for a little bit more. And you see he actually goes into the back corner. And you see him attempting to cast a spell. And you see him finish casting, and he peeks outside the tent, and he kind of curses to himself, and then he goes back and puts a big old mark on the book, and he throws it onto the table as he steps over. My apologies for that. My name is Finch Locke. You're with the Inexorables, I assume?
Yes. I was. Well, yes, Hardrock happened to mention it, so you doubtlessly know of the disappearance of our two former compatriots.
Yes. And I sincerely apologize that we do not have the resources to investigate this ourselves. We're still trying to just make sure that our people survive at this point. We've tried to send a couple people that way, however, at the end, they just get diverted at some point. I've been in minimal contact with Lycus, I believe. He says he'll be coming later this week in 2 or 3 days, hopefully, to finish some discussions. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have questions, but the general idea, I believe it was 5 days ago now, maybe this would be the 6th day, is when the Archmage Entrati showed up. Entrati, we were having our discussions and negotiations and diplomacy. He arrived midday. By the time we were finished discussing, Atan had something to go and do, so we were left. He went out. We had him go to a section of our camp. It's just a little bit east of here. Kind of more north than east, but still. And we sent him to this certain sector of the city. It's the Marinar Commissaire. It's mostly just a place for people to gather to get stew. It's the commissary, but there's a couple beds there, and I can have Herdok lead you there to maybe talk with a couple people. The concurrent people that live there, they might have seen something a little bit more than what they told us in our very, very short preliminary investigation. And then Pax, the big guy, he showed up a couple days later. He was a lot rougher to deal with and talk with. He was belligerent, pretty angry. He seemed to think it was our fault. And I'm not necessarily going to say he's wrong, but with a lot of scared people who were recently slaves, seeing a big, especially celestial-looking man walking around, he caused quite a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Well, that's Pax for you.
Yeah, especially considering he and Stolius were quite close, so Fulman disappearing, you can imagine why he was angry.
Yeah, I can understand. I don't think he understood our plight, or the plight of the Vox in general, having just been enslaved by people who looked smaller, but very similar to what he looks like. So of course there was problems with that, and he ran about for a couple days, Nobody wanted to challenge him. He's quite an intimidating figure. And then in the same sector of the city just disappeared. Can't tell you how or exactly where. Like I said, Herdok can lead you to the Marinara Commissary. But if you do you have any questions? Maybe there's something I'm forgetting or something more I can tell you. Just anything about the camps.
I wasn't curious so much about the camp as I was about the negotiations. Was there anyone outside of you and Stolius who would have known the outcome of the negotiation?
Well, considering there was no outcome that ever came to fruition, not really. In terms of people that participated, I mean, it was primarily me and Atan with him. Herdok was nearby. There was no other representative from your side of things. There might have been one or two other people who stepped in at some point, but I trust them entirely.
And where's this Atan?
I can't tell you. He has left camp on a very important mission for the Vox.
Understandable.
And if you're in any way trying to think that maybe Atan has been compromised, Atan is as big as Pax and just as scary. There is very little chance anybody got anything out of him if they even were able to capture him.
Yeah, my first thought was that there were some parties who might not have liked the outcome of the negotiation, but there was nothing decided that rules that out.
I mean, it's not like all the lords in the Galadriel Empire are exactly happy about the...
Yes, but I suppose I was thinking something more specific to these negotiations.
True.
Maybe it was one of the camp members. Didn't like his type.
Well,
We're talking about Pax here.
yes, I could see plausible motive, but far
Pax
from
may-
me.
Antrati, though?
Herdog points out, and yes, in Trotty, he wasn't even here long enough to get much of a opinion from the Vox as a whole about him. He was merely here for less than 24 hours before he went disappearing. Maybe Pax could be understandable, but I doubt even a swarm of our gods could have incapacitated him in any way.
Remind me again, did we ever receive any information about any Umbral activity in the area? Aside from Astolius and Pax?
I don't believe we did.
It was not mentioned. Whether it was
No.
there or not, it was not mentioned by Abathar.
Okay.
I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel like
Rakus is
Avatar
just
would
shaking his head.
But
The
also,
thing is,
if
if
you...
Pax is there, it would like ruin any signal that they would receive. They would assume it's Pax.
Yes, that is legitimately what I was about to say. From session 1, when Pax was talking to Linen, if he was on a hunt, it would effectively nullify any reading from that general vicinity.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and give my rudimentary sketch of the camp to not but the other guy, not the guard,
Finch.
Finch. I'm gonna give him my rudimentary sketch and say I've done some detailed work on what your camp is like right now. I'm not sure if you have any maps as it is since you just moved into the area. Do you think you could label some of these locations for us to make it easier for us to navigate your camp?
Yeah, I mean, for today, he's just gonna take the map and kind of open his eyes a little bit and be like, I'm assuming you did this in the dark. And he's gonna begin marking down on it and a couple things. He's gonna say, I doubt you'll be going to any sectors outside of these, 2 or 3. And he hands it back over. And there's a couple different sections. He marks out both the Mariner and the Sevorum commissaries. which are both near the center towards the north and or west side of the central section. It doesn't really seem like there's been a whole bunch of sectors clearly defined in the camps yet. But he will also mark out the west side, and he says, since you came through here, he marks down, and you see written the Western Insteles. And that's where you came in at, where all the guards and the prisons were.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
It's easier.
Everyone in those hanging cages, were they just rule breakers or?
They were not hanging. I will just clarify this real quick.
Sorry.
They are not hanging. They are
Just
on the
cages.
ground settlements. They're effectively slightly opened wall boxes that people live inside, and those are prisoners.
Yeah.
And they are mostly made out of metal, not wood. Regardless, he's gonna say, no, those aren't. Well, I mean, some of them are. Don't get me wrong. But we have another Insteles on the southeastern side for the rule breakers of the Fox. During the extraction and rebellion on Dairn, there was a lot of dwarves that surrendered. And on our way back, if we sent a lot of those dwarves back to the Dwendalian Empire, I mean, in the Dwendalian Empire, they probably wouldn't have had too much trouble. They probably would have been reprimanded and fined, or XYZ, maybe put in prison for their treason. But for those Katanet dwarves and Azamar that we had, I mean, they're still pretty zealous in their cages, and they don't like us one bit. But if we were to send them back, they would probably be executed. So where we are right now is we're waiting for this Festival of the Rise, as soon after, not only the important meetings during, but soon after, there's going to be a council of all of the lords of the Cladrian Empire, and they're going to begin discussions on what level of sovereignty they're going to be giving the camps for us adjudicating our own laws upon those that we have here. And we'll be holding trials for those of the Obsidian and Arkstone Guard and the Hells Riders of the Katana churches, just to figure out what to do with them. Because right now, we don't want to execute them or do anything more than we already have. I'll say some of them absolutely deserve it. Some of them were terrible to the slaves and to the true citizens, as they called them, of Dairn. But we're not going to decide without some kind of trial. And we cannot execute a trial until we're given some form of sovereignty in this nation.
Quick, out of character question. That Conference of the Lords, that is different than the Conference of all of the mages that we are going to be securing after this.
That is different, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Are they like happening at the same time, so we can't do both?
Separate. They are separate. The Mage Council is happening during the festival. He was talking about this Council of the Lords happening just after, as a lot of these lords have their own stuff to do in their city for the festival. Directly afterwards, all of them are going to travel to an agreed upon location. Likely Suno, but it could be somewhere else.
After all that talk about, like, judging them, putting them on court and stuff, I'm gonna look over at Wayne and say, totally up your alley. Justice.
Yes. He's very unusually quiet and has a little bit of a strange look on his face, as if he's almost conflicted.
Secure just kind of leans over you and says, all right, I'm just trying to bond with you. I've been disagreeing with you since we met, so I mean, if you don't want to talk, that's fine.
Well,
He's just gonna kind of look at you and be like, just kind of just give you just a little bit of a dismissive nod. It's not you, but yeah, it's fine.
I suppose, last question, at least I can think of for you, Finch. There wouldn't happen to have been any new people that moved into the camp. Some, at least shortly before or around the same time as Stolius?
I mean, of course.
I understand that it's a large camp.
It's a very yes, it's a very large camp. And on top of all of that, there's caravans and support trains. As leadership of the Vox are going to different cities or different mercenary guilds or just trading guilds in general, and negotiating or paying them to bring their wares here. There's been a lot of new people entering the camps, and there will be new people entering the camps for probably the next 2 to 3 months pretty often. I'll say most of them are paid contractors and such, whether it be coming here to as apprentices or master workers to build things or make clothes or whatever. I would be very, very surprised if any of them were going out and subjugating or taking out an archmage and some kind of celestial. I don't even know what he is. But nobody entering at this point really has that power. Hell, I doubt anybody that was already here really has the power to easily take care of them.
Yeah, well, I suppose it was worth an ask.
Aside from individual people, I guess from any, potential relics from Darren that anybody might have taken with them.
Taken with them? Do you mean like relics that are currently here?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
in terms of like relics of technology or magic items from a bygone era, there's dozens, if not hundreds, here in this camp. However, most of them are owned and actively worn by war heroes and members of the guard. He points back to Hurdock, and he says both his armor and his blade are both of Darnish make. They're thousands upon thousands of years old. And that's not uncommon for some of the more well-known heroes of the Vox. So if you're talking about weapons, absolutely, there's plenty that's worth stealing here. And that's not even talking about the Lightstar Forge. They're forging things never seen before. I mean, they're mostly just working on horseshoes and buckets and wells and just trying to get the feet underneath this camp. But back in Darren, they were making weaponry that I had never seen before.
Well, unless anybody else has any questions, I suppose.
Do you have do you happen to have like an official census or head count of everyone who came with you?
The official head count of those that came off the some odd 4,000 boats that came from Darren, at least in the first primary wave, we lost a fair few ships. It was about a 4.5-month journey to get here, almost 4.5 months. Coming off the ship was about 282,000, approximately.
And I'm sure you all are you still thoroughly going through that head count of who exactly you all have?
We're trying to, but I'm going to be honest, it's pretty much anarchy here. We're trying to get some form of logistics underneath this ginormous number. But I'm going to be honest, most of the people here, when they were running numbers of contraband or raw gold coins or how many weapons there are. When you're talking about each one of those numbers being a life and each small group of those numbers being a family that was all subjugated, It's a very, very different mathematical equation.
You're a smart man. What's a good approximation?
Of what's in these camps now, or this camp in particular?
I'd say this camp in particular is more important, but if you have an approximation for both, I'll take it.
This camp in particular, from our last count, which finished last week, we had 63,000 and about 400, give or take some, in this camp, and this is the largest of the camps. There's a dozen other camps spread out that are in between 5 and 30,000 for each of them.
Millions.
Huh?
So you have like a million people.
No, total is
it was like-
near 300,000.
Yeah.
We have 60,000
Oh, okay.
here, and 12 other camps in between 5 and 30,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. Regardless, we were hoping that with some help of, it really wasn't the Inexorables, it was more just straight from the people who were leading it. They would be able to offer a little bit of aid in some regards, but we'll see what Lycus has to say later this week. Either way, I need to get back into trying to perfect nature magic so we can feed the people here. So, Hurdock, if you'll take them to the commissary, the same people you had Pax speak to, probably have them speak to. Hurdock's gonna say, "You mean the same two people?" And Finch is like, if that's all you had, then yeah. Well, I wish you the best. Let me know if we can do anything. Maybe I'll be able to spare some supplies for you.
Oh, before we
I'm
leave,
gonna. Oh, okay.
no, you go first.
To his comment, I'm gonna wave his hand and says, "I don't think that'll be necessary. We travel lightly, but we travel within our means."
All right. Well,
Anyways,
if you need any food, the commissaries will be happy to feed you. There's no charge, no cost.
Potions?
What did you just
What
say?
did he said potions.
Health potions?
Health potions?
Did you
He's gonna say,
use them?
brother,
Yeah,
I
well,
just said we don't.
I mean, if you find yourself needing some later, I guess we can try and make something work. But we don't have a lot to spare.
After hearing that he's trying to learn nature magic, Lynn will kind of rummage through his bag and bring out like a small like folder of notes of like beginner just fauna and nature that's just useful for health, general health.
As you hand
You
it
know,
over,
pass it over.
he flips through it, and he's probably reading a page every 5 to 10 seconds, just scanning through. And about 20-30 seconds later, he says, yeah, I read that one 2 weeks ago.
Thought it was worth a shot.
Yeah, I appreciate the thought. There's a lot of druids here who can do it, but particular spells of like over a period of time, fertilizing a land and making it grow crops and stuff. There's a way to speed up that process. And I mean, with not much better to do right now, with everyone else gone, I can't make decisions on my own. That's kind of the whole point of a democracy.
True.
So
I was just trying to aim for more spreading knowledge about medicine, but if you guys have it, if you guys got it, then you guys got it.
If you're good at if you're a doctor or good at medicinal stuff, I'm sure if you're willing to maybe offer a hand an evening or two once this is all done, we would appreciate it greatly. There's whole families that have come down with different poxes or little diseases that are native to Darren that we have no clue what to do with. Regardless, that's not why you're here. Hurdock, get them out of here before I keep talking. And Hurdock is gonna kind of beckon you all to exit the tent. steps out to the commissary.
To the commissary.
All right. And he is going to begin leading you. He kind of leads you up north a little bit and then just slightly east. And as you guys pull in, it's this ginormous open area. Probably, 3-4 acres of just an open field with tables and chairs lit everywhere. And then you look over and there's another whole section. And this commissary has a couple pavilions that you get the smell of stew wafting your direction as they're beginning probably a 100-gallon pot of stew to feed as many people as physically possible. As you guys kind of enter the commissary, Hurdock is going to say, there's a couple particular people that frequent this area. Let me pull up my notes real quick. Oh my gosh, my computer is having a poop time. Alright. So as you guys are all let in, he says there's 2 particular people who Stolius spoke with. There is Kareen and Silas. They're a couple of the regulars that come here. And as he kind of walks around the corner and leads you a little ways off from the open field of the commissary, he kind of pulls up to maybe a 5x10 tent. And he's going to brush lightly on the front door and say, Kareen, are you in there? And stepping out is probably an early teen orc woman. As she steps out, looking inside, she is the only person in the tent. And as she steps out, she says, yeah, Hurdock, what's going on? And Hurdock's going to say, this is another group of people looking for that wizard man, as you called him. And she says, yeah, I guess I can talk to them. Hurdock's going to say, and if you could point them towards Silas when you're done. I am needing to attend to some business. And she kind of shyly nods up to him as Hurdock turns and salutes you guys and then makes his way away. Kieran says, if you want, we can go sit down at the commissary. I'm sure at least the first pot of stew is ready.
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
She kind of looks over and says, for elf-like people in an air genasi isn't really my most comforting group of people to talk with, regardless. So it doesn't really matter to me.
Well, I don't suppose we can help who we are, but I'll start walking towards the gesture tables. I'm sure we can ask plenty about Stolius, and then once we do, we'll be out of your hair.
Alright. So as you guys kind of go over, you guys kind of get small bowls of stew, and sit down. As you guys do, she ravenously just destroys her bowl of stew. And then says, so, what do you guys want to know?
I like to think that the turning point between her, like, absolutely destroying this bowl of food and her saying, well, what do you guys want to know, is, like, instantaneous.
It is. It's very quick.
So.
So yes, what do you guys want to know?
When was the last time you saw Stolius?
The wizard man.
The wizard man, yeah.
Yes.
It was 6 days ago. I believe it was the day he first arrived. I don't know particularly why, but he did want to talk to me about some of my experience in Dairn and how that went, and some other stuff of today. And yeah, he made up some food that tasted a lot better than this stew. I mean, I'm thankful for the stew, but he made that and he fed me, and he was just asking questions. He wanted to know about the fox and how they're treating us. But yeah, it was 6 days ago that night. We stayed up talking pretty late, if memory serves. And then he went off to his bunk, and she kind of points over towards a slightly larger tent and says, I mean, it's communal, but I don't believe there's a lot of people in there right now, or were 6 days ago.
And you wouldn't happen to know what bunk or anything further specific in that tent where he stayed? Just to narrow down a search?
I don't think I could, but I believe Silas could. I believe Silas was in that tent. He was one of the other people sleeping in that tent that night.
And do you know anybody else who was sleeping in that tent?
I don't know of anybody else. I'm sure there were. Tents like that can house close to 100, but I don't think there was more than half a dozen in that tent that night. Hence why he was put there. But I don't know any of the other people that were there. I think they've moved on to either a different section of this camp or a different camp entirely.
Do you know when they moved on?
I honestly have no clue. They were probably just there for that one night before moving on. Maybe Silas would have a little bit more information for you. But I couldn't tell you one way or another.
And you've mentioned the Silas character quite a lot. Do you have any idea where he might be currently?
I mean, he'd probably be in that tent right now. He's a little bit older, maybe a little bit more crazy, one would say, but he's a nice enough guy. You just got to get to know him. I don't think him and Stolius, right? I don't think they got along very well, but that means he was paying attention to him in one way or another. At least I'd assume. When that really big guy came through asking about Stolius, honestly, I didn't have much. He just wanted to talk to me.
What did he ask?
Stolius? I mean, he.
No, Pax, when he came in. Big man.
Kind of.
Because if he ended up finding Stolius.
It's kind of the same thing. Why Stolius wanted to speak with me, what we talked about. Oh, right. Stolius was saying that he was going to be looking into and investigating a little bit more of the Insteles. He was curious about possibly improving them or something like that. At least I think that's what he was saying. He said that he had seen them and that a single fire on a windy day could burn them all down. I mean, I don't know how. They're mostly made of rock and stone and metal. But, I mean, either way, he was saying he wanted to do that, and I think Entrati was kind of taken aback by the camp. I mean, he didn't say it, but I'm pretty sure the reason he wanted to talk with me is the fact that I'm a young person who doesn't have a family anymore. and that's not something he's really used to seeing. The squalor of the camp kind of took him aback, and I think he really did want to help. I don't know why anybody would try and stop that. Everybody in this camp is pretty much in the same place.
Now you said he said that he was looking into investigating the Instellis. He wouldn't have mentioned any specific areas of the Instellis or a specific one he was going to, would he?
No specifics. He was just saying that they weren't good for what they were designed for. Effectively, the Vox right now has to keep 24/7 eyes on every single one of those cages. Most of the prisoners, from what I've heard, aren't really posing that much of a threat at this point, but some of them are pretty tricksy.
Well, aside from that, in the camp, aside from, well, the struggle to get set up and survive, has there been any, I guess, odd rumors floating about? Any,
There's a whole bunch of odd rumors.
Horrors in the night, magical
Horrors
occurrences,
in the night.
phenomenon, people going missing.
There have been some, common squabbles, but the Vox has seen enough of bondage and victims. Regardless of whatever race we were, we all had a chain around our neck for one period of time or another. It's pretty hard to stay mad at someone when you know they suffered in the same way you did. Some people have still had troubles remembering that, but most of us don't. So, I haven't heard of much in terms of, deaths or disappearances or horrors in the night. I've heard once or twice there was a caravan coming in that apparently got attacked by some dire wolves. Another couple caravans that were supposed to show up but didn't, and or showed up really late. But outside of that, I don't really have any info.
That's fine. Just trying to rule out magical anomaly.
Yeah, I have no clue what that would look like even if I saw it. If you guys don't have any more questions for me, I would like to get another bowl of stew and bring Silas over. That way you guys can talk with him.
Yeah, well, once you get Silas, Leopold will tap on his bowl of stew. I'm sure you could have this one. Yeah, you could probably use it more than I.
She kind of looks down and then looks back up and kind of nods and says, "Okay, yeah, thank you." And she kind of jogs off. About 3 or 4 minutes later, you see her pretty much dragging a human man that you would probably put somewhere about 65 to 70. He's an old dude.
We'd peg him at that age?
What did you say?
Do you mean that we would peg him at about that age?
Yes, you'd peg him at about 65 to 70 years old.
You forgot to use your adjective, so I was just making sure.
I didn't know we were pegging today, but
I'm just glad. I guess you guys should be glad that I didn't crack up too badly at hearing "whores in the night" as "whores in the night."
I definitely also heard whores in the night. I knew what you were saying.
I don't know if you saw me perk up. I was like,
Look,
oh yes, you perked up at the sound of "whores in the night."
Man,
but
don't make fun of my accent.
Also, the fact that they like whores in the night, and they've all been in bondage together.
yeah, I've been kind of making faces this whole time, just like poor choice of words. That's what she said. That's what she said. That's what she. Trying so hard.
Silas is brought over to the table. He looks either very tired, very drunk, or very high. Possibly a combination of them as well. And as he's kind of stumbling over, he kind of sits down and immediately reaching for the bowl that Leopold kind of set into the center of the table, immediately gets his hand smacked, and the bowl is grabbed by Kirin, and she kind of walks off, nodding again to Leopold. Silas kind of looking after her with a glare. He looks at you, Sakir. You eating that?
You don't want it anymore. I can tell you that much.
He says, okay. He looks to Wayne. Are you eating that?
Go ahead.
He kind of reaches across the table, grabs it, and he's more calm with how he eats. He grabs just a little bit. He says, so you're here looking for the wizard?
Yes.
And the scared celestial.
He wasn't that scary.
Yes. We were told that you stayed in the same tent as Stolius.
Yeah, he stayed up late looking at his book. Had a light at the end of his
Was that the last you saw of him?
Light at the end of his finger, you say?
I mean, yeah, he has to read somehow. There's no torches in there past 8, 10 o'clock. Yes, the last I saw him was inside the tent. As he takes another bite, he says, I went back out a little after he went to sleep. I went out, met with a person or two, came back. When I came back, he was asleep. When I woke up, he was gone. Quite the investigative crew you got here.
I'm just
It
noting
always helps
things
to
down.
think.
Yeah.
Always have to think before you blurt out dumb questions.
You don't happen to know anything that was in the book Stolius was reading, do you?
I mean, hey, I've seen a sign or two of Celestial in my time. I'm pretty sure that's what the book was written in, but I probably couldn't tell you for certain.
Did you talk to him about anything?
I told him to turn the light out, and he somehow already knew that I was going to be going out again that night and mentioned it, and that kind of freaked me out. But outside of that, I didn't really discuss with him all that much. There was 4 other people that night. There were 2 orcs, 1 goblin, 1 probably heavily mixed elf type. I couldn't tell you for certain, but definitely not all elf, definitely not all human. I didn't know any of them. They were there for the first time that night. And I haven't seen them
And
since.
do you know what... Okay. You didn't catch any of the names?
The orcs were Skilja and Skyja. They said that they were from a camp just a little bit closer to Team, and that they were making their way farther south because they thought that they had possible relatives down in a camp farther closer to Rivacheg. The goblin never said a word, and the elf was strumming on some kind of lyre most of the night. Didn't talk all that much. Liked to sing, but none of us got coin for a performance.
What about Stolius' interactions with them? Did you notice anything particularly out of the ordinary?
I mean, Stolius seemed interested in the orcs and their plight. I mean, he was talking with Green for probably an hour or two the night that he was here. I mean, I don't remember him talking about anything too particularly important with anybody in there. He seemed to take some kind of interest in the half-elf, but it didn't take very long for whatever conversation they were having to kind of go by the wayside.
Did Stolius mention anything about investigating anything the next day? Or going to look into anything in particular?
I think he mentioned something about the dwarves and the Instelles, the western, whatever's the prisons. He mentioned it once or twice. I don't know exactly why, but he had some kind of interest in them, that's for sure.
Well, I guess I'll
And you wouldn't happen to know where any of those other fellows that were there that night went?
I mean, like I said, I'm assuming those orcs kept heading south, camp to camp, day by day. Never spoke with about anything with the goblin. I think that half-elf's probably still in this camp somewhere. I never heard about him moving on, but he's certainly not in this commissary anymore.
Shifting the topic from Stolius, Pax also stayed in that tent, correct?
He stayed there for one night. He did not return the next night, but if what the guards are saying is true, he didn't go missing until sometime midday the day after. I don't know if he just pulled an all-nighter doing whatever he was looking at or found a bed somewhere else. It's not like there's really any bed in this whole camp that makes it for someone his size, but...
Yeah.
I don't even know if he
Let me-
sleeps, to be honest.
Let me quickly clarify the timeline. So so Pax arrives, sleeps in that tent. Next day happens. He disappears this day, or is it?
the next
There's
day.
another night.
He was here
disappears
for
the next
2
day.
long rest cycles. Whether he actually rested
Okay.
for both of them, you don't know. But he arrived one day,
Yeah.
slept, full day, night, disappeared the next day.
And you don't know where Stolius, or not Stolius, where Pax went that second day, do you?
No, I don't know. I mean, I didn't talk with Pax as much. He was on a bit of a rampage. And I'm gonna be honest, last time I saw a guy with golden eyes, he was flogging me. So I didn't really have much of an interest talking with him.
Understandable.
Well, I guess I'll ask you the same thing as Kareen. Any rumors? Any particular odd anomalies aside from the 2 disappearances of the people we're looking for?
I mean, I guess one could say that this commissary's been a little light of late. Less people have been coming here. It doesn't necessarily seem for any particular reason. But there's been less here. I know one of my buddies over in the Sevorum commissary, he was saying that they're kind of in the same boat, seeing less and less mouths coming in every day. I personally think it's just people migrating to other camps. This camp's a little overbooked. Yeah, it's got the most support behind it, but at a certain point, even the numbers out a little bit, make it a little bit easier on the Vox. At least that's how I see it.
Fair enough.
No odd-looking fellows besides ourselves and the other 2.
I mean, there's plenty of odd-looking fellows, but I don't think in the way you're particularly looking at. I'll say the half-elf was probably the oddest-looking fellow that's been around in a while.
You said he was playing a lyre?
Yeah, he was playing a lyre. He had bright blue eyes. Which...
Rikus is gonna freeze as soon as he says that and says, "How many folk around here do you know can play the lyre?"
Well, considering most of us are beast folk, and most of those haven't been alive much longer than before they went to Dairn. Not many. However, I will say it was really weird with that half-elf. Just because, I mean, elves generally have brighter eyes, which that didn't necessarily shock me. It's just when 90% of the area around you is beast folk, they all have darker eyes. So seeing someone with such vibrant pupils was a little weird. But
Almost as bright as Pax's, you'd say.
no, nowhere close. Paxes could light up a room. This guy,
Oh, yeah.
you would just see him in the corner and know that he's there.
You didn't happen to catch his name.
Nope.
What was his? What
I'm
was his
gonna-
hair color?
His hair
If you
color,
remember.
it was blonde.
I'm gonna turn to the others in the party and says, "Well, if you didn't know where he went, I think we've gleaned as much as we can from the conversation."
I'm thinking so as well. I need to get another bowl of stew anyway. Well,
We'll
if anything
pass
else
his
comes
bowl
to
over.
light that you have questions for me, you know where I'm gonna be.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
He's,
2 bowls for 2 bowls. Linen will slide his over.
He's gonna put the empty bowl in the middle of the table, and he's gonna pick up the bowl, and he's gonna start walking back to his tent. Probably about 20 paces out. He was speaking pretty clearly, but he totally trips over a table and just falls and gets back.
Does he at least save the bowl?
He does not. He
Damn.
saves about half the bowl. And whatever half
Womp,
he's able to save,
womp.
he stands back up and continues walking. Doesn't even look around to see who saw him fall.
I wonder if he and Pete would get along.
As soon as we're kind of out of earshot, I cross my arm and kind of looking down at my feet and say, "Please don't tell me I'm the only one who picked up on that."
The blue eyes?
I'll admit that I only picked up on about it when you did.
I mean, what are the chances, right?
Either way, it
Never
looks
know.
like Linen, you're getting a payday. Congratulations.
We'll see where it goes. I don't really have much luck with gambling.
Linen, you're a note taker. You don't happen to remember his name? Oh, what was it?
Which
Oh,
one?
the fake name of the blue-eyed elf that was blonde that sat in a corner, but then also happened to pay
Old
loot.
Linen starts sifting through
Or
his
liar.
journal. Let's see. There's Jeremy Hassan who didn't show up at the bar. Harris Falcom?
I'm scrolling through my journal as
also
well as
scrolling
we're looking
through.
through it.
It
Harrius-
might have been Harrius Falcom was
Yeah.
the name of the vibrantly dressed bard.
That was the one that turned out to be the
However,
Nestheru,
that
right?
was the one who turned out to be the Naztheroon. That is correct.
The fake
No,
name
no,
of
no.
Varys would be Shazon Fairway.
Yes.
That one.
He was not bright-haired. He had bright eyes. He was an Asmar, but he had dark hair.
But he had bright blue eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, I do agree that this elf.
Well, I'm
Scared.
I'm pulling out a small little file on the Shazon Fairway, and I'm pulling out fake CBI badge, multiple identities. It has multiple different identity cards of a human, a dwarf, an elf, and others. And I pause on the elf, Zach, do these identity cards have pictures
They have like
or a sketch?
hand-drawn sketch that is very accurate. Yes.
What does the elf card look like? Of the multiple like of all the identities I'm sifting through.
The elf card, I mean, it's not colored. It is a sketch.
Yeah, I know, but I guess I'm gonna turn around immediately, head back into his tent, and say, and kind of flash a picture at his face at the guy. It says, "Was this the man that was in the tent that night?"
As he kind of steps out of the tent to see it in the light, he says, I mean, looks close to it. I wouldn't say it's the same guy though. The bard, he had a little goatee. I guess I should have mentioned that earlier. He had a little goatee. His cheekbones are a bit lower, his nose a bit bigger. But I could certainly, I mean, I ain't one to say that all elves look alike, but they look pretty alike.
Okay. Sorry to bother you.
Yeah, it is what it is. And you see him immediately like dive into his bed, just crashing into it. The little cot.
Right. Back into the group. Shazon Fairway.
Well,
What's the name on the elf card? Sorry, DM.
The elf
Doesn't
card-
happen to have another name.
No, it does not. Well, Shazon Fairway was the disguise that Varys took.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about.
Yes. Well, these are all like this was all that was inside of Shazon Fairway's apartment that I stole from his vault. The multiple identity cards, the fake CBI badge,
right.
ceremonial dagger.
So
So the elf card, when I showed the elf card, I was like, this was a fake identity of Shazon Fairway, who we found out later was Varys. Sorry, I should have clarified that.
One of the other identities was Shaquel Lazon.
Shaquel Lazon.
That seemed to be the only other identity that had any use.
Shaquel Lazon.
lays on what?
God damn it.
Alright, so as you guys all sit in the commissary discussing what little bits of information you've gotten, trying to decide where you're going to go next, we are going to end the session as you note one of the guards that you saw outside of Finch's tent is making his way towards you through the commissary, as it is starting to pile up with more and more people. That is where we're going to go ahead and end this session. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys had fun. No crashes this time. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Yippee!
Hopefully that means
Impressive, DM.
hopefully that
Impressive.
means what I did worked.
Yeah.
Just updating some drivers and stuff like that. Either way, y'all have a good one, and we will return into the refugee camps of the Vox Sevorum next Thursday.